No
Hey guys,
worries.
welcome back to the Batar Project. I'm your host, Nick Batar. Today I'm joined by Mark MacManus. Thank you for joining me.
No, thanks for having me, Nick. I really appreciate it, mate.
Awesome. Well, I guess we'll start off with what's something you're grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for having a roof over my head, just because at one stage that was something that I didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. It's the little things that we take for granted in life that really we got to be super grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess we'll just dive straight into your story. Hey,
Yeah, mate.
you've told me it's such a a powerful and raw story. I want to dive straight into it.
Yeah.
I guess a little trigger warning. It's to do around drug addiction and all that stuff. But yeah, take it away, man.
Yeah, mate. So I guess I'll dive into me addiction and that kind of stuff and can go back to my childhood and that kind of stuff a bit later on. But I was addicted to amphetamines for about 8 years, um, and mine kind of stemmed from I had really low self-confidence and low self-esteem and suffered with a lot of anxiety when I was younger. And but I didn't really know what the anxiety was at the time. Like I just always know that I just had always like felt like I had a knot in my stomach. I used to walk around with a knot in my stomach and feel like something bad was always going to happen, but I just kind of didn't know what that was. And my only really escape at that stage was football. I love me Aussie rules football and played from the juniors up into the seniors, and that was kind of my escape. And I ended up breaking my leg playing football, and yeah, I kind of didn't have that escape anymore, and it was kind of my identity there for a long time. I was known as the good young footballer from where I come from and that kind of stuff, and that was what I was kind of known for. And then when I kind of stopped playing football, I started eating a lot of rubbish food and that kind of stuff, and put on a lot of weight. And for someone that already suffered from like anxiety and self-esteem and that kind of stuff, I think I got up to around 120 kilograms or something like that, and I was really super unhealthy,
How tall are
and
you?
I was going out. Pardon, mate.
How
Sorry.
tall are you?
6'1".
Okay. So we did you look fat or you just look
Oh yeah,
bulky?
yeah, absolutely, mate. I looked like, especially in my face, like I just sort of really carried a lot of weight in my face, and yeah, put on all that weight, and then I was like drinking heavily. Like I'd always been a bit of a drinker at like football clubs and that kind of stuff, but the drinking really progressed, and I was actually really anti-drug. Like I'd never really thought of touching drugs or anything like that. I'd seen the effects of what drugs and alcohol could do from an early age, and I'd never thought about it. And then I just had one moment of weakness one night when I was at a local nightclub, and I took an ecstasy tablet for the very first time. And if you had told me that you'd take one tablet and then within 8 years you'd be in the fight of your life, you'd be basically homeless, you'd be have just got out of a rehabilitation facility, and you would have lost all your family and all your friends and everything you basically worked for, like house and that kind of stuff, would have been gone. I would have told you were mad.
That's crazy how you just take one pill and does it really just hook you that badly?
For me, it was just the like when I took it, it just gave me this like false, um, gave me like as I said, like having no confidence and that kind of stuff. It made me feel confident. I could talk to people and felt like I could do anything. But what I didn't realize it, what comes up must come down. And yeah, so from that was that one night, and I guess what it really done was it just opened that gateway for me, because it was something that I was never going to do. And then I did it, and I thought, oh well, nothing super bad happened. I didn't hurt anyone, or I didn't die. So then it kind of just progressed from there. Then I might have started taking it a bit more regular and might have took it once a month, and then I kind of started taking it most weekends, and then it just really progressed from there. And I said, oh well, I'll never use speed. And it's just like any addiction, it just progresses. And then I did use speed, and then the same thing. I said that I'd never use ice, and the age of 28, I tried ice for the first time, and within 2 years, I'd lost everything.
Shit. So you tested the waters and then you ended up just taking everything.
Yeah, and I think it was just because I just I just didn't know how to. And I've heard you say, mate, and I laugh every time I hear you say it. How you say you're an introvert, and
Yeah.
like I'm a really introverted person, but I spent like the majority of my teen years and that trying to be this extrovert. But like, that's just actually not me. And it was actually obviously later when I've got everything together that I've realised that I'm very introverted, and like conversation and all that kind of stuff's not something that comes extremely easy to myself. And but I think it was just like going on that journey to find out who I really am. And I think I was actually meant to go through what I went through. Like I know it was a rough ride, and that's for sure. But I honestly believe that I'm a much better person now than what I ever was.
Yeah. And there's a quote, I don't know if you've heard it before, but it goes by life happens for you, not to you. As in like
Yeah, yeah,
everything happens for a reason. You know, you get lessons, it's part of your journey.
yeah, absolutely. And now I'm being able to turn that around and try to from my experiences is to obviously to try to help to educate some kids and that kind of stuff, that one, like taking a drug once can literally have that effect on your life.
Yeah. It's funny how you say like you feel like a new man when you took drugs. Now I don't drink often, but when I was younger,
Yeah.
I'd drink at parties and that, and I'd go from introvert to like the biggest extrovert at the party. I was like, everyone was like, "Who the hell is this guy?" I'm like,
Yeah,
so weird. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy. It's crazy what it can do, that's for sure.
yeah, I try not to drink now because I know that's the person I go into, and it's not me, and I get no benefit
Yeah,
out of it.
no, you just feel like shit.
Yeah.
You just end up feeling like shit.
So you touch on, you know, you grew up playing footy, you broke your leg,
Yeah,
and you lost your kind of identity. I find that that happens to a lot of, I guess, people in sporting arena. You know, they play sport all their life. That's all they know. They identify themselves as just that sportsman or woman.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
when it's all done and dusted, they're like, whoa, what the fuck? There's the whole rest of my life to go, and they don't know what to
yeah,
do.
that's right. And I come from a town in Gippsland, and it's called Hayfield, where I grew up. And it's a kind of a logging town, and that's a small town. And um, yeah, I loved growing up there, and like it had a real strong football identity. I think like the guys. So there's only like say 2,000 people in the town. I think at one stage there was 4 boys playing AFL from like a small town like that. So it's always had that real strong football club and identity. And yeah, I loved playing there. And in the juniors, I was lucky enough to be I could stand out in the footy and won best and fairest and all that kind of stuff. And I found footy was something that like really come easy to me. It was something that was natural, something that I didn't have to really work too hard at, because when I'm back then, working hard at things was not really a part of me. I've learned that later in life. But I was lucky enough to like play in some rep teams and play down at Windy Hill on Essendon's home ground. But I also remember going to high school. So when I went into year 7, and I went to school in Sale, and I got over there, and I was playing football against like some blokes like Dylan McLaren and Shane Burse and Jake Schuback, and that who all played AFL. And I was just like, and I even remember then like, because I had a bit of an ego around football, and I even remember then like my ego took a bit of a hit because I might have been one of the better footballers where I come from, but then you go and somewhere else, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not actually that good, to be honest. So, and
Yeah.
even those kind of that kind of stuff just with you when you're suffering from like anxiety and that kind of stuff, and always comparing yourself to others from such a young age, like it was never going to end well.
Yeah, you're like that big fish in the small pond, and then when the
Yeah.
pond got bigger, you're like, holy shit.
Oh, holy hell, yeah. And I even remember going like when I was playing down Windy Hill, and like it was a great experience and that kind of stuff, and trying out with Gippsland Power, who were in the TAC Cup, and trying out with them. But I was just like, holy hell, like these blokes that play AFL and that, they're pretty special. I was definitely not anywhere close to that, but it was, to me, it was everything. Like it was actually just, I just lived for sport, whether it be footy, cricket, basketball. It was just, yeah, that's just what I did.
Yeah. Did you have ambitions to take it further, or was it just fun?
If I could have, I would have loved to, but, and I tried, I think in under 17s, I we moved down to Traralgon. We moved from Hayfield, and I went out and played. I tried out a power. Obviously, didn't make the cut, and then went and played out at Yunnar. And I was lucky enough to play in a senior grand final there when I was 17 and that kind of stuff. So even that kind of stuff, you're a kid and you were playing with the blokes, and so it was just in like that was kind of living the dream for me when I won that grand final at 17, and there was blokes that I was playing with that had waited their whole career to kind of play in the senior flag.
Yeah. How did it kind of, I guess, affect your mental health when, you come from a small town, you're seen as like a really good footy player, and then you don't kind of go to those expectations, I guess, people put on you? Like, do you feel like kind of a failure?
Yeah, to an extent with sport, and I guess I wasn't, like you see, like some of the blokes I went to school with now, that they were really driven like at being the best at school and that kind of stuff, where I didn't try at school at all. Like the only thing I was interested in was sport. So then when I kind of like finished year 12, and even though like I finished year 12, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what my enter score or anything like was like that, because I just actually didn't care. Like it was, and then when I was going, all my mates, they were going to university and that kind of stuff. I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I just had no idea, no direction or anything like that.
How old are you? Do you mind me asking?
38.
38. Okay, so I guess different generations back then, was it kind of seen that you have to go to university, like that's the only way out?
Nah, I guess for me at that time, mum and dad, and my mum and dad, they're like beautiful people, super supportive. Like dad's been a hard worker his whole life. He worked up the bush his whole life. He used to work 14, 16-hour days, and mum's beautiful. She has always she looked after us kids and that, but she's always done charity work. Like she's worked at St. Vinny's, and now she runs like the St. Vincent de Paul soup van down where we live now. She's always trying to help others, but they were pretty resigned to the fact that I was just going to go and get a job and try and get a trade or something like that. And I did go and get a trade. I'm a printer by trade, so I went and done a printing apprenticeship. But that to me, it was kind of just a job. It was nothing like what I work in disability now, where I look after 30 guys with a wide range and disabilities, and like it's a really rewarding job what I do now, where back then like it was just get a job because that's what you kind of got to do.
Yeah, you get that sense of fulfillment when you're actually helping people. It's amazing feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm lucky, like I'm very passionate about mental health, and because it's been a big part of obviously what led me to addiction. But when you work with people with disabilities on a daily basis and you see the battles and the struggles that they deal with on a daily basis, and the mental health and that kind of stuff that they suffer from, it gives you a really newfound respect for what people with disabilities put up with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it would be hard, and it's awesome to see people like yourself working with them and actually helping them get through their life more easily.
And the best part I find it for myself is that 8 years ago, mate, like there's absolutely no way that I could have looked after anyone, let alone looking after myself. So that's just one of the rewards of what recovery has given me.
Yeah. Now let's go back to your addiction. How bad did it get? You mentioned it ended up you taking meth daily.
Yeah, every day. I actually couldn't function without it. Like it was literally, not that there was a lot of sleeping going on, but it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning, and it was the last thing that I thought about before I went to sleep. And it's just all my life revolved around was either getting it or where was I going to get more, or it really is just an insidious drug. And it just takes away it took away everything that I was. Like I'm always been a really good natured, caring, loving person, and I was someone that was never violent or anything like that when I was using ice, but it just numbed me. I just had a numbness that I couldn't see the devastation that was having to all the people that cared about me and loved me. It was just like for mum and dad, like for anyone that cared about me, it was just soul destroying for them. my dad says it was like watching everything that you dreamed of just go down the drain, and basically just being a passenger and not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, I get shivers actually thinking about that, like especially one day when I have kids, and if they, like, hopefully not, but if they went down that path, like, I don't know how I'd feel in that moment. Seeing,
Yeah, and I've got two beautiful daughters, and like, and I'm the same, mate. Like, my youngest daughter, she's 4, and she's the most strong-willed, and like, she's amazing, and she's another reward of recovery, because if I hadn't got my life together, like, she wouldn't be here. So, but she's just got this nature that she's so strong in that, and I think a lot of the times we try to not get that out of him, but I really like that, because it's going to hold her in good stead for in life, when you need to be able to stand up and say no to peer pressure. And I think being headstrong is a really good thing, because that's something that I wasn't. That's for sure. I was a real pushover.
yeah, that's why I love like children. They just they don't care about anything.
No,
They are who they are.
yeah. And
It-
that's what I said to you, mate. I had to wait tonight before for her to go to bed, because she'd be up here with me right now, mate. I guarantee you that.
It's all right. I have a little co-host.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you ended up homeless. Was that by just using all your money on drugs?
Yeah, so I kind of ended up homeless twice. So the first time, and I didn't really even realise that I was homeless. So, because I was just couch surfing and that kind of stuff, and obviously probably could have went home to mum and dad, but because I was just so unwell at the time, I couldn't go there. And it got to the point where mum and dad and my family kind of had an intervention. They a few people had come to him and said, listen, we're really concerned about Mark. Like, if something doesn't happen, we don't know where he's going to end up. And I knew where I was going to end up. It was like, I was literally, when I went into rehab, I was days off being basically put in jail. And that was simply that I wasn't, because they couldn't narrow me down. They couldn't narrow me down to an address, basically, because I was couch surfing and that. So I went around to mum and dad's one day, and my sister, and mum and dad were there, my brother, and yeah, they were going to have like an intervention, try and talk to me. And my dad was that worked up, and that he had like a panic attack. We thought he was having a heart attack, and we called an ambulance. And mum was so angry at me, as you can imagine, like, and she was like, you can ride in the ambulance with your dad. And I was actually really that unwell at the time. I was in psychosis at the time, and you hear people talk about psychosis quite a lot, but the way I like to explain psychosis is you just completely lose grip on what's reality and what's not. You actually don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we were taking him out of the ambulance, I actually thought it was like a big act, and that they were faking it, and because that's what people would do. Like, that's how unwell I was. And we took him out to the hospital and realised that he was just having a really bad anxiety attack, a panic attack. It was just because he was so stressed of what he was going to tell me or try to speak to me, and they were scared that I wouldn't like be open to help. And we ended up going back home, and mum made me stay the night. And the next morning, dad called me into his bedroom, and he said, you know, you're unwell, mate. You know, you need some help. And what we're asking for is for you to come down to Melbourne and speak to this gentleman, and we'll go from there. So I went down there. We went down Melbourne. I walked into this office, and there was a fella sitting there, and we're having a chat. And I thought, yeah, so there's nothing with me, just a bit and that kind of stuff. But he'd been in the same seat that I had before, like he was by me, and now he was running a rehab. And yeah, down to Geelong for 30 days, and for 3 months. And yeah, so then I went into rehab.
Did you actually want to fix yourself, or you just went because they told you to?
I just went because they asked me to. Like, I actually still didn't think, because I was so unwell, I still actually didn't think that I had a problem. even though like, I found myself in the situation that I was in, and I did ask that I'd just be able to go home and say goodbye to a few people, and mum and dad were petrified. And but the bloke at the rehab said, no, I believe him. I think he'll come back. And they made me leave my phone and wallet with him. And so I went home and said goodbye to a few people, and went back down to Geelong. The rehab was in the next day. And there's a couple of things I remember when I was on my way there. I remember going over the Westgate Bridge, and there's like a KFC on the other side, and we stopped and to have something to eat. And I remember a song coming on the radio, and I just remember sobbing. Like I started to cry, and I was just starting to get a bit of reality, I guess, of what was going to be ahead. And then we got down to Geelong, and I remember pulling up out the front of it, and I can still see it. I can, like, just in my head when I visualize it, and still see this building, and thinking to myself that I don't belong here, like still in denial, like I don't belong here. You only hear a rehab like in movies and that kind of stuff. And obviously started thinking that I was going to be going in there with criminals and junkies and all that kind of stuff, some of those stigmas that are now attached to myself. And when I went in there, I found out pretty quick that they were just people like myself, and I was embraced. And it was the start of realizing that I had a problem anyway.
Yeah. Now, talk to me. What was rehab like? What does it involve? What did it involve for you?
Yeah, so the rehab I went to, it's called a therapeutic community. And basically what it was is just teaching you those life skills, again, that you really forget. Simple stuff as going to bed at a reasonable hour, and waking up and making your bed and doing your washing, and just getting you back into the routine of what you do in normal life. And obviously there was quite a bit of counselling and psychologists and that kind of stuff involved. And I started to work out. I started to work out in there, which they let you do a little bit, but they discouraged it a bit too, because they don't want, because obviously what happens with a lot of us, because we've got such an addictive nature, is we just swap one thing for another. Be fitness is, let's be honest, a better thing to be addicted to than what I was. But and in all honesty, my addiction to fitness took me a long way for a long time, but now I've been able to get that balance, that in balance.
You there?
Get like all those things that you've been pushing down and not wanting to feel. You've actually got to deal with those things. And yeah, that was pretty rough. I remember also like waking up in rehab, and I used to have the pictures on my wall of my loved ones. And I remember waking up every day. I'd wake up in there and say, how the hell did I get here? Like it was like waking up and I was expecting to be home or something like that, but it was just that reality every morning of when you woke up and realized where you were. Oh, that was pretty hard.
Yeah. Talk to me about coming off the drugs. Like, was it just cold turkey that you just came off?
So they gave me it was a Valium reduction.
Yeah.
It was a really, really strong Valium reduction for around 7 days. And in that time, I just slept and slept and slept, because I'd had very little sleep for a long time. So it was just like a Valium reduction. And then they obviously took you off the Valium, and then it was, you're kind of on a clean slate.
Yeah. So they just wean you off, which is
Yeah.
good, better than cold turkey.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long were you in there for?
3 months. So yeah, for 90 days. And like they wanted me to do another 3 months. They wanted me to go out into a outpatients for another 3 months, but I was kind of like, 3 months I thought 3 months was a long time as it was, but in the bigger picture, looking back at now, I definitely needed longer, because it wasn't like I walked out of rehab and that was the end of it. That's for sure. It got a hell of a lot worse before it got better.
You want to touch on that a bit more?
Yeah, so I guess when I got out of rehab, I I went out and I was fixed. I was cured. I was going to fix the world. I was going to help everyone else. And I just don't think I'd really grasped the concept of what addiction was yet, and like how powerful it really is. So when I got out, I was still doing like a lot of AA meetings and NA meetings, and I think I stayed clean for about another 3 months. And being a selfish addict that I was at the time, Mum and Dad decided to go on an overseas holiday to basically celebrate that I'd got my shit together, and I decided that that'd be the perfect time to relapse. And that was one of the scariest weekends of my life, because I found myself in a situation where I didn't know. I caught up with a bloke that I met in the rehab, and we went down to a property somewhere, and yeah, for the next 2 to 3 days, I actually didn't know whether I was going to walk out of there alive. I ended up walking out of there alive, and ended up making my way home. And I was on my way home, and I broke down. I was driving in these states, which is crazy and ridiculous in itself, like putting other people on the road in danger. And it's just such a selfish, like everything you actually do is selfish. You don't have any thought process for anyone else other than yourself. So I was driving home, and I got a flat tire on the side of the road, and I rang my sister, and my sister couldn't even make any sense of what I was saying or that. So she knew exactly what was kind of going on. And I finally got home, and she was there at Mum and Dad's house, and we had a massive fight and I went to bed and just didn't care, just went to bed and sleep it off. And when I woke up, my brother was there, and I had talked to him. He said, "You need to ring your sister." And I rang my sister, and she said that the family had spoken to the rehab, and they had advised on me not going back to rehab. They didn't think that was a good idea. They said that you've tried everything you possibly could have done to try and help Mark. Mark knows what to do if he wants to get well. There's only one thing you have never ever done, and that's cut him off. So my whole family cut me off.
Shit.
My sister was on the phone, and I remember it, and she said to me that we were talking, and she said, "I don't want to get off the phone because I don't know if I'll ever speak to you again." Like, she didn't know whether I was going to be able to get my life together, or if I'd just keep doing what I was doing and eventually die like so many others do.
Shit. What was going through your mind at that time? Could you
I was
process
still
it?
not really, because I was obviously coming down and that again, and my mental state was really, really bad. Because what I find is, when you've been someone that's already suffered from psychosis, like, I could guarantee you now, if I went relapse, I'd be back in psychosis in a day. Like, it's just something that I don't know how it works or that, but I think for someone that have abused drugs and that as much as I have, and that it's just like psychosis comes straight back. So yeah, I was in a bit of psychosis again, and so I couldn't really figure out exactly what was going on, or the enormity of it anyway. And so I had 24 hours to get out of Mum and Dad's house, get all my stuff, and they'll change the locks. And yeah, I was left to my own devices, and it was either I could have went one or two ways. I could try and go and get my shit together, or I could go and do the same thing that I always that I was doing quite a bit. And I went and seen a mate, and I basically probably only had one mate left at that time, and he said, "Come and live with me." And so I moved in with him, and like, yeah, I owe a lot. I owe a lot to him, because even after that, there was a couple of relapses before I actually started to get well.
Shit. Yeah, it's, by the sounds of it, it's very hard to get that addiction out of you.
Yeah, it is. And like, even though, like, if I do this, everything turns to shit, it was just this obsession. And I think I used to tell myself that I didn't deserve any better. Like I was a shit person. So you might as well be a shit person. Like, and that was just how I thought of myself.
Did you have any thoughts of taking your own life, or you just wanted
Yeah,
to see if the drugs
yeah,
would do it for you?
yeah. Like I had thought about it. Um, it was never something that I acted on or never attempted to do, but there was those thoughts. Yeah, often thought that everyone would be much better off if I wasn't here.
Uh, I, I don't know how people go through that feeling of, I guess, life would be better off without them. That's
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
shitty feeling to have.
it is, and and when you like talk to me mum and dad and that now, like, yeah, they would like you couldn't even start to comprehend how devastated that they'd be if I wasn't here. So, but yeah, I kind of moved in with me mate, um, and it was a battle. Like it was a battle, but I was probably trying more than what I ever had. Like I was genuinely trying to get clean because I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And also another thing that come with me when I was doing drugs was I'd gamble. Like it was just like a vicious cycle. All the shit things that you could possibly do, like I kind of just rolled them all into one, like gambling, drinking, the drugs, and yeah. So I went through a patch there, and when I was living with my mate, and I had two relapses when I was living with him, and one was just was a weekend. They were both just weekends. Not that that makes it any better, but the last one I remember was North Gippsland football grand final, and because one thing I found was I felt very lonely because obviously I'd burned a lot of me mates and like a lot of those relationships needed to be repaired and worked on and that, and then I was trying to not hang around the people that I would normally hang around because obviously then I'd be doing drugs and that kind of stuff. So sometimes I felt quite isolated and lonely. So then occasionally I'd think, oh well, I'll just go down the footy or something. I'll see some of the boys and it'll all be all right. But I got down to the footy and started having a few drinks, and then once again took an ecstasy tablet, and then ended up over at Maui in a house, and I'll never forget it. There was two blokes there that I went over and seen, and they ended up they were heading off down to Melbourne, and they actually got picked up by the cops when they were on their way down to Melbourne. They got pulled up at Pakenham, and they got done, and they both went to jail. So if I was in the car with them that night, fair chance I would have been there with them. And I stayed back, and I remember I was smoking a pipe in front of one of those big gas column heaters, and I just had a moment of like clarity amongst it, and I was crying, like I was crying while I was doing it, and it was just like, what are you actually doing? Like if you think like it's obviously not fun, like you're obviously not having a good time anymore, and you're sobbing while you're doing it. And I just remember that I thought to myself, I never ever want to feel this way again. And so that's when I that's when I haven't obviously used since that time. But I wish it was like you have a moment, you click your finger, and then like it's kind of better. But I tell you what, like the first 12 months, like was probably the hardest 12 months of my life. Even like it would have been the hardest 12 months of my life, that first year of sobriety.
Wow, that's crazy how you're sitting there doing a pipe and you just flick a switch. You have all these emotions just hit you at once, and then I guess that was the turning point for you.
Yeah, 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 it was. And then it was literally one foot in front of the other for like minute by minute. Like it was just sometimes, like as I said, then I had like I got addicted to the gym and that, and sometimes I'd have to train 3 or 4 times a day just to be able to put one foot in front of the other. And people used to say to me, well, that's not really healthy. And they're probably right, but it was kind of what kept me going for a long time. And it's a real challenge too to build back those relationships, like with me family, and because no one trusts you anymore. No one believes a word you say, and like for good reason, because you just become a pathological liar, because everything you're doing is you have to lie about. And I remember my dad always saying to me that if I used to tell him what the time was, he'd literally have to check the clock, because anything I said would generally be full of shit.
Wow.
So it took like a long, long time to have anyone to have any confidence or that in you, because like obviously you'd burnt them all before.
Mm. And just to go back a bit, you're now like kind of addicted to the gym. Um,
Yeah,
with your addictive personality, did you get into steroids or anything like that?
no, no, no. I've um, been able to steer clear of the steroids and that, but I was probably lucky to a sense that if that had got offered to me in early recovery, um, with that nature, I mightn't have been able to say no, but I kind of didn't come across it. I've come across it later, like like later into me training. But yeah, it's been something I've been able to steer clear of.
Awesome. And how long did it take to kind of build those relationships back with your family?
Um, I would say I reckon by the time I got a year clean, a lot of those relationships started to come back together. But there was always that doubt. Like you could just tell you were always doubted, and I used to get like quite upset and annoyed and that kind of stuff at it. But like now looking back on it, I completely understand. Like because yeah, like it's you cause so much hurt and so much pain to so many people that yeah, you don't just earn it back overnight. And I found it easier for me when I actually started to believe in myself and trust myself, and got to the point where I was able to say, well, if people aren't like, if I tell them something and they don't believe me, and I know that that's right, don't worry about it, because you know that you're doing the next right thing, and you know that you're telling the truth. So you just kind of got to get through it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like in life when people call you names or whatever, you know it's not the truth. Why do you
Yeah,
need
that's
to care
right.
about it?
Yeah, that's it. And it's just like it's just yeah, it's a it's a slog, that's for sure.
And so you're 12 months clean, you're building those relationships back. What else were you doing with your life? Did you get a job or?
Yeah, so I got a job. I got a job at a local timber mill, and they were fantastic for me. Like I've always been pretty open about me struggles and that kind of stuff, because I've found out a lot of the times, especially when you live in small towns and that kind of stuff, people talk and that anyway. So you can be guaranteed that people will find out anyway. So I've always been pretty open about like what I've done and what I've been through. And yeah, so I was working, and I was very lucky that my now wife came into my life not long after that, and she has been the bit like she's just been the most massive part of my recovery. It was just to have someone that come into your life that um, she just believed in me. Like I remember when we were on like our second or third date, when I told her, I wanted to be honest, and told her that what I'd been through, and she just never batted an eyelid, and like she always just believed. She seen me for the person who I was then, and then she always just believed in me, and she's been like, I can't actually even describe what she's done for me, but I was the world's harshest critic on myself, and she just believed in me so much that in the end I actually had no choice than to start believing in myself and cutting myself some slack.
Yeah, I guess she brought that affection to you.
Yeah, and like someone that was completely removed, you know what I mean? My parents are always gonna love me because I'm their son, and my family are gonna love me, and but to have someone completely removed come into your life and warts and all know what I've been through, and just be yeah, just love me for the person that I was a massive part of my recovery.
That's
She
awesome.
actually like she actually loved me back to life, in all honesty. Like, and how far I've come since I've been with her. Like, they're two completely different people.
That's awesome to hear. And it's funny how the right people come into your life at the right times.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like,
Life is a
I
crazy
don't.
roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, even to the point where, like, I never used to have any confidence in anything I did, really. But where now she's just kind of taught me to just have a go. Like, what's the worst that can happen if you have a go at something that doesn't work? It doesn't matter. At least you tried. Where I've actually found out now that I've got actually a lot more skills than what I actually ever give myself credit for.
Yeah.
But I actually owe all that to my wife.
It's all mindset. All starts in the mind. You just got to believe in
Yeah,
yourself.
yeah, that's it. And that's something that I'm 38 years now, and I reckon I've believed in myself for about a year. So but at least it's there now.
That's great to hear. And you're 6 years clean, is that correct?
About 6.5, yeah. So coming up to, yeah, 6.5. What, yeah, 6.5 years.
That's an awesome achievement.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty amazing.
what does life look
And
like for you now? You got 2 kids?
yeah, I got two beautiful girls. Married. I work in disability organisation. And that's been another massive uh, growth for myself. My manager now, like, she believes in me also, and um, she's actually training me up into her role, so GM of operations and that. So when she's on holidays and that, I can step into her role and do that as well. So, like, that's been really big for me as well. And we live out on a little bit of land, and my wife collects animals. We've got cows and sheep and dogs and chooks, and yeah, we got our own little bit of paradise out on a little farm. We've got 7 acres, and life's amazing. Like, a bad day back then was worrying about getting your door kicked down by the police, or worrying about someone coming trying to rob you, or worrying about whether you're actually going to be there the next day. And a bad day now is like, you just can't even compare them.
And
Like, you just, yeah.
it's so powerful. And for all the listeners listening, like you were in a really shit time. In a matter of years, you've changed it all around and you look very, very happy, which is amazing to see.
People said that I'd never ever get it. Like, there was plenty of people out there that I was told I'll always be a piece of shit. I'll always be useless. I'll never amount to nothing. Um, you'll always be a drug addict. You'll always be a drug addict. That's all you'll ever be. And yeah, it's life's and I believed that for a long time too. But life really, really can change. But you got to actually want it, and you can't. I tried to do it for other people. I tried to do it for me parents. I tried to do it for me family and that kind of stuff. But as I spoke to you, it wasn't until I actually had that light bulb moment that day that I actually said, hang on a second, I don't want to feel that way anymore. I never want to feel like this again.
Yeah.
Like, you actually got to make that decision yourself. No one can do it for you, and you can't do it for anyone else. You actually got to do it for yourself.
You nailed it on the head there. And so many people, even in, like, it doesn't have to be around addiction, just general life. If you want to
Yeah,
achieve something, you actually got to want it. You got to
yeah,
have
that's
a
right.
purpose behind it. If not, you're never going to achieve it.
No, no. So yeah, mate, life. Like, I smile when like, you can see, I genuinely smile when I think about my life now, and I've got so many exciting things happening now. Like, obviously, I've just started up my own little project, and that's really starting to kick off now. And so I'm super excited about that, and being able to hopefully change some lives, and to support people who have loved ones that are suffering from addiction. Because I'm a big believer in educating, not only educating kids that what drugs and alcohol and the effects it can have, but to educate parents that they're not bad people if they have a son or a daughter going through addiction, and to try to help them to see not blame themselves. Like, just, I remember my mum was like, she thought if she had to gave me a couple extra cuddles, I would have never went down that track. But just to try and help as many people that are affected by it as I possibly can. And yeah, I'm super, as you said, like it all comes down to you and what you want to make of your life. And like, I'm extremely passionate about helping others now.
That's amazing.
And it's really hard to get vulnerable, mate. Like, I done a presentation the other night that you're aware of, and to stand out in front of 80 to 90 people, like, where probably the majority of them were complete strangers, and to get up there and talk about your deepest, darkest times of your life is a really, really hard thing to do. Like, where I could just be sitting at home with my lovely wife and my beautiful family, and just be sitting back and not talking about it, just pretend like it never happened. But I actually feel like I owe it to try and help some other people, because I have plenty of people reach out like all the time and ask for a bit of support.
That's amazing, especially for your first talk, 80 or 90 people. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
it was really good. And like, it was good to have quite a few like youth organisations and that on board, and some people who teach mental health first aid and that kind of stuff come along, and to get some really, really positive feedback from the night. And I've also been contacted by a couple other people, and to say that, or one of them was actually saying that I'm actually going to check into rehab, like after listening to your talk. So I always said, if you go in and you speak to a crowd and one person either can admit that they need some help, or if you stop one kid from actually ever taking drugs, it's going to be well worth it.
Yeah, 100%. It's just about impacting one person at a time.
Yeah, and to break down some of the stigmas that are related with it, mate. Like, this happens to anyone. Like, it's not that, like, the stigma says that people that may have been abused, or people that may have had violence when they were growing up, and yes, that is the case, that does happen, but it actually can affect anyone. And I truly believe that if you battle with your mental health, and then if you put drugs and alcohol on top of that, I believe that they're the people most inclined to become addicted.
Yeah, it happens to everyone, but I see a lot of people are just naive to it. They kind of push it aside and don't believe it's actually happening to them.
Yeah, I think we're like actually living in really scary times too now. Like you jump on social media and that kind of stuff, and even like as you say with fitness, like kids are trying to obtain these physiques and that kind of stuff, that in reality there's not many of us, or unless you're actually blessed with absolutely amazing genetics, or whether you want to go and take a heap of gear, you're not going to get like that. But these kids like want to look that way. And then you've got the other side of it, where drugs and that kind of stuff seems to be nearly bragged about, and that kind of stuff. Go and get in a bag, like you see on TikTok and all that kind of stuff about, let's go and get a bag and that kind of stuff. And that actually is a real scary time, because that's just like it's like going and having a beer to kids now, and like that actually scares me.
Yeah, it would be scary for you having kids yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I definitely don't want them to ever go down the road I did. That's for sure.
Exactly. Now, out of your whole experience, what would you say is some of the positives you've taken out of it?
I'm actually there's actually a lot of positives. Like I'm the person that I am today. I'm caring. I believe that I'm a real strong person now, and I reckon I've got a really good outlook on life. And obviously my family, I've got all my family back, and my beautiful wife and daughter, that obviously if I hadn't have got it together, I wouldn't have. And what's ahead of me, like I'm 38 years old, and sometimes I look in the mirror and think, shit, you're looking old, but like I'm only 38. Like I've got a lot of life ahead of me, and it could have been much worse. Like if I had kept going down that track for another 10 years or so, like, and you don't know the impact that it would have had on my brain and that kind of stuff, because luckily like it seems like I come out pretty unscathed from that point of view, as far as like I do still get quite bad anxiety and that kind of stuff. But as I said, that's something that I've always kind of suffered from. So yeah.
It's great how you can always take the positives out of the negatives.
Yeah. Yeah. I watch a lot of motivational speakers, and I was listening to something the other day and it says, my greatest times didn't come from my greatest times. They come from my darkest times.
Yeah.
And it's so true, like, because now when I'm having a great time, I know how great it is, because I know what it's like to be low.
Yeah. You value it that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Do you follow a guy called Gary V?
I do. I know,
Yeah.
how good is he?
He's a
He's
fucking
bloody hilarious
I
too.
love that
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. I love his outlook on life, and just how like he seems like just down to earth guy, and he seems to engage with everyone. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's bloody shit. I love him. I like David Goggins, Eric Thomas, even Matthew McConaughey. He's got some good stuff out there. And
Did you listen to his audiobook?
Matthew McConaughey,
Yeah.
nah, I haven't.
You should listen to it. It's really good.
Yeah, yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And like some people might think it's a bit bloody whatever or that, but I've actually like gained a lot of like strength and that kind of stuff from listening to those kind of people. And yeah, I get a lot out of motivational speakers, and that's for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Do you do any other sort of personal development? Do you read it all?
Yeah, I do a little bit of reading. Probably not as much as um, I should, because I just, it's like, and you actually shouldn't. You get home of a night and you finally sit on the couch and you sit there on the phone or whatever. And me and my wife actually been talking about it, and need to make a bit more of an effort of not being always like not on devices of
Yeah.
a night and that kind of stuff. So um, I'm actually it was just today I've been looking into doing some study on mental health, and yeah, actually upskilling,
That's amazing to
doing
hear.
the diploma in mental health. Yeah.
That's great. And I guess what piece of advice would you give to someone that's going through a drug addiction or like trying to get out of drugs?
Yeah. Um, to to own it, to own like and that to try to realize that there's only going to be one person that's going to actually be able to get yourself out of it. And I found for me, if you're still blaming others and feeling sorry for yourself, that's not you're not quite ready yet. But if you can own your own shit, and yeah, you need to really look deep inside yourself and to just own your own. Like, that's the one bit of advice. I just own your own shit.
Yeah. You need to get out of that victim mentality.
Yeah, feeling sorry for yourself and the pity party and all that kind of stuff. Because if you're still doing that, you can guarantee that you're still in for like the seas are still going to be rough. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, so is it the Restoration Project? Is that just a
Yeah,
Facebook group?
it's a Facebook page, and yeah, so it's kind of stemmed from there. And yeah, so I've got probably half a dozen football clubs booked in for me to go and speak at. There's there's a disability organisation that would like me to go and run an event with them. Yeah, there's quite a bit happening, and there's just one bloke in particular that I'd like to give out a bit of a shout out. I won't say his name because he'd hate that, because he's just not that kind of bloke. But he's like, when I've started this restoration project, he's actually more excited about it than what I am. Like, he just believes in it so much, and like he's just pushing it like every chance he gets, and he's just got this faith in me. We caught up for a coffee today, and he's just saying this is just going to be massive. Like, I can just feel it's going to do so good, and like he's come on board as a corporate sponsor, and he's just yeah, just backing me to the absolute hilt. And it's good to have those people. And actually, and because when you come from someone like myself, and I've actually struggled with it a bit, because once upon a time I used to take advantage of people, where like now I'm just like, well, if you're going to invest in the project, I want to be making sure that like everything's very transparent and we can see exactly what we're doing and the direction that we're heading in, and what we're looking at achieving.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear that people are getting behind you and supporting your vision.
Yeah, like there's definitely plenty of support. Like I've been blown away. And unfortunately, and I think it, like in all areas, like everyone, like there's lots of struggles when it comes to drugs and alcohol. But unfortunately, the area where I live in, that it's very, very, very prevalent.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely be pushing your stuff out. And if you ever need any help, man, I'm happy to help any way I can.
Yeah, appreciate it, mate. Really appreciate it.
Do you have an Instagram, or is it just Facebook at the
Yeah,
moment?
mate. Yeah, I do. I've got Instagram as well. I'll send you all my links, and
So I'll put it all in the descriptions and we'll share it all
yeah,
out.
that'd be good. Probably one of the best things too, like at my presentation, I got one of my mates, he's got a media company, RSF Media, and I got him to he made like a mini documentary. And the documentary is it's an interview with my parents, it's an interview with my counsellor, it's an interview with my old school teacher, and it's an interview with my best mate. And it's just kind of showing addiction from their perspective. So I just want people to get like an overview of, it's not only the person who's going through addiction that struggles, but what the families and the friends and all that go through. So it gives a really broad, like a really broad view of what it was like for everyone. And it's actually really, really powerful.
Yeah. It's surprising that drugs don't just affect the person taking it, it affects everyone around them.
Yeah, most like, and I believe more so the people that, the loved ones. It affects the loved ones more than the person that's actually suffering.
Yeah. Now, is this documentary released already, or?
So I'm using it at my presentations. So it's
Okay.
a part of me. It's part of my presentation. It goes for about 15 minutes, but I'll flick it to you so you can have a look. It'll be good for
Awesome.
you to have a look.
Awesome. We'll finish up with, I've got two last questions for you. We'll go by the first one. What is your definition of success?
That's a good question. I'll say my definition of success for me is waking up of a morning and going to bed at night and not even thinking of putting a drug in my body.
Yeah. That's great, eh? Great feeling
Yeah.
to know that your path
Actually doesn't cross my mind, and I actually thought I'd never ever be able to say that, but I can honestly say it never crosses my mind anymore. And if it does, or like, it won't be like that I want to go and do it, but if I say go down the street and I see someone really struggling or doing it rough and you see them under the influence, I just actually makes me feel really, really sad that that's how they're living at the moment.
That's fucking awesome that you have that mindset now. That's great.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll finish off on the last question. When your time's all up and done on this earth, what would you like to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for being a good father. I want to be remembered for being a good husband, and I also want to be remembered for making a difference in a lot of people's lives, as far as whether I help people that are struggling with addictions, whether I help kids never try it, and even mostly important to me is helping families that have loved ones struggling to just best support them so that they can hopefully get the outcome that I was lucky enough to have.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your story and giving up your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, mate. Really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, it's been really good. Thanks, mate.
All good. I love what you're doing. I'll put all the links to all your stuff in the description. I'll share all your stuff on social media, and I can't wait to follow your journey.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate.
All good. For the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in today. Really appreciate it. If you enjoy this episode, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and give me a review on iTunes. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.